Hey guys, today I'm going to tell you 6 of my coolest travel experiences so far. I will say, for any of you who have not been following me as long, or if you're just popping onto this video and this is the first video of mine you've seen, none of these are going to be really extreme. I'm not terribly sportsy. I haven't done anything like bungee jumping or parachuting or anything. I have done parasailing. Is that extreme? I'll also let you know that they're all in North/Central America and Europe, because those are the only 2 continents I've been to so far. So now that that's out of the way, let's get started. Going in chronological order, the first one on my list is from Puerto Rico. I think this was from 2007. My family and I went on a family vacation to Puerto Rico, and one of the things that we did was go to a bioluminescent bay. For those of you who don't know what a bioluminescent bay is, I'll give you a little bit of a breakdown. Basically, there are these creatures called dinoflagellates, and when you move around them or when they get shaken up, they glow like a bright blue. And there are several places in the world that have bioluminescent bays where a lot of these organisms live, and the brightest in the world is off of the Isla de Vieques in Puerto Rico, and that's the place that I got to go. So when it got really dark, we got on a boat and we went out into this bay, and then you got off the boat and you got to swim around in the water with these things. So you would just get in the water and start moving, and all around you it would start glowing this bright blue. Unfortunately, I don't really have that many good pictures from it because my parents were taking pictures from the boat when my sisters and I were out in the water, but of course it doesn't really show up that great on camera. Basically, most of the pictures are just like pitch black and you can see a tiny bit of glowing. Overall, it was just an amazing experience and definitely a highlight from that vacation. The second travel experience on my list I think was from the year after. I think it was 2008, and my family and I went on another family vacation, and this time to Texas. We did a lot of cool stuff, but the thing that really sticks out to me is when we stayed overnight at a really old Spanish mission. There are a lot of these all over Texas, and I think just southern US in general, anywhere where there was a lot of Spanish settlement and presence. And one of those places is called Presidio La Bahia, and it's in Goliad, Texas. And according to the internet, I just looked it up, apparently it's ranked one of the most attractive Presidio sites now. But I didn't know that at the time. It was just a really cool place. There's a lot of history about this place, and I'm not going to go into the whole historical story. If you're curious, you can look it up. There's a lot of stuff available online. But one of the things you can do at this particular Presidio is stay overnight. A portion of it is called the quarters, and it's where the priests used to have housing. And they've restored it and of course put in like modern things like showers and toilets and things like that so you can stay overnight. But it's only for one group. Like, it's not like there are multiple rooms where tons of people can stay. So my family and I, my 2 sisters and my 2 parents, us 5 got to stay in this place where priests used to live. And on top of that, which is not really part of the historical coolness, but it was also supposedly haunted. I'm not sure you can actually find any of this online, but I remember specifically when we were there, because of course as it's getting darker and it's starting to look cooler but also a little creepier, you're starting to think a little more about like all the history that's been there and all the people that might have been there. And they had this book where people could write their supernatural experiences from this place. I'm not a superstitious person, but when it's getting dark and you're in some place that's so old and you've never been before, and then there's also rumors of it being haunted, my imagination can go a little bit crazy. Having the place to ourselves also just let us relax a little bit more. It gave it a feel that just visiting a touristy site with lots of other tourists around you, you really don't get. Definitely not something I'm ever gonna forget. For the next place on my list, we're gonna skip ahead a few years to my first day in Paris. This was by myself. This was after family vacations. It's after I moved to England, so it was in December 2013. I'd never been to France before, and when I was living in Bristol, the university international group had this trip that a bunch of us were gonna go to Paris. And I signed up to go, and none of my friends were going. I didn't know anybody who was, but I just really wanted to go. At this time, I had very recently started dating my boyfriend, who is French, and he had gone home for Christmas at the time because it was in late December. So we arranged for him to come and meet me in Paris the first day that I got there, and we were going to spend that first day together, and then after that I was going to spend it with the tour group. It was my first time in France, it was my first time in Paris, and I think he knew that the tour group might not be as great of an experience in terms of really maximizing the time in Paris and seeing as much as possible and experiencing as much as possible. We saw as many of the highlights and experienced as many of the things that are typically Parisian or French even, because I hadn't been to France, and it was such an amazing day. It was definitely probably the best day I've ever had in Paris, but definitely the best of that trip. We saw the Louvre, I believe that was first. We also of course saw the Eiffel Tower. We didn't go to the top of it. I still actually have never been to the top of the Eiffel Tower. We saw a bunch of Christmas markets as well, which is something that most people probably don't get to see unless you go specifically at Christmas time. And he also took me walking down the Champs-Élysées, which is the really big, long, famous street in Paris. There's like Louis Vuitton, a bunch of like really famous designers and expensive places basically. And at the end of that street is the Arc de Triomphe, and we got to go up in the Arc. The view from the top was so beautiful. It was absolutely freezing up there. It was really windy, but it was so worth it. The next place on this list is from the next month, and I was living in Bristol, and my mom and my younger sister visited me there. So of course we had to spend a couple of days in London because that was the first time they'd ever been to the UK. I really wish I could include two things from this trip, Westminster and the Shakespeare Globe. But I won't really talk about Westminster too much because they didn't allow pictures inside, so I have less to actually show you. The Shakespeare Globe in London is not the actual original. The original, I think, was burned down twice, at least burned once, destroyed, I think, twice, at least 2 times. Anyway, it is a reconstruction. It's not the original Shakespeare Globe, because that's long gone. But the way they've done it is to make it as historically accurate as is humanly possible. They have a little mini museum and stuff like that there, but the coolest thing was just to go inside the globe itself. Standing in that room was really, really amazing for me. I just sat there and I imagined what it might be like at that time. I really, really, really wish I could have actually seen a performance there. Unfortunately, it never quite worked out with my scheduling and stuff when I was there to be able to see something. But someday, you know, I'm not living there anymore, but I'm gonna go back. Next on my list is from Edinburgh, Scotland. Unfortunately, this is the only place in Scotland I got to experience. Still kicking myself for that one. But one of the coolest things I remember from Edinburgh was something probably seemingly simple, and for any of you people watching, if you're actually Scottish, you probably think it's the weirdest and silliest little detail in the world. But I'm gonna tell you anyway, because I thought it was amazing. Of course you know that Scotland is known for bagpipes, but what I wasn't expecting was the amount of street bagpipe players. So when I first got to Edinburgh, of course I landed at the airport, I took a bus, and when we got off we just sort of started walking, and we saw Edinburgh Castle, and as we were getting into the main part of the town, I just started to hear this bagpipe sound, just sort of fading into earshot. And basically from then on out, for the rest of the day, once you were out of earshot of one bagpipe, you sort of started walking into earshot of another bagpipe. There were so many street bagpipe players. So a very, very small detail of Edinburgh. We did a lot of cool stuff there. We only spent a couple days, but the one thing that I probably will never forget, other than all the scarves that were made in Scotland, is the bagpipes. The last place on my list was something I did last year, and any of you who have followed me probably remember this one because I did Instagram about it. My boyfriend took me to Normandy, France, which is in the north of France, and he didn't tell me anything we were gonna do, but I had read about Mont Saint-Michel before. Basically, it's this little island off of the coast in Normandy, and the entire island is this fortification. It has a lot of history from when it started centuries ago, but the thing that stuck up probably the most to me was the fact that the design of Mont Saint-Michel was the inspiration in Return of the King, the third Lord of the Rings movie, for Minas Tirith. And if you look at pictures of the two of them, you can definitely see the resemblance between them. I swear I could have probably cried. I was so excited. And to get to the top, you basically start at the bottom and you kind of just wind your way up. I mean, it's definitely inspired, like Minas Tirith is definitely inspired by this design and everything. I could talk about this for a very, very long time, but I'm just gonna stop there and just say it was one of the coolest things and the most amazing experiences I have ever had. And speaking of traveling and France, I'm about to go back right now. Hopefully, if I can get this video edited on time, I won't be in France yet when you see this, but I might be. And if you want to see what I'm up to and see a little bit of Paris, which is where I'm gonna be, then you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram. And I'm so excited. It's actually sad. I'm missing flights. I'm missing like the part of traveling that no one should ever miss. I'm missing it. Thank you guys all so much for watching, and I will see you soon.